The HFY War fleet hung in space like a massive steel web. Thousands of ships arranged in perfect formation around the besieged colony world of New Geneva. Commander Sarah Chun pressed her face against the viewport of the underground bunker, watching the alien vessels block out the stars above. For 3 months, nothing had moved in or out of the system. The blockade was absolute. "Ma'am, we're down to our last week of rations," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez, his voice steady despite the grim news. "The medical supplies ran out yesterday." Sarah turned from the window, her jaw set with determination. Around her, the command center buzzed with quiet activity. 47 survivors from what had once been a thriving colony of 50,000 souls. They were the lucky ones, if you could call hiding underground like rats lucky. The attack had come without warning. The Zelkari Empire, masters of half the galaxy, had decided that human expansion needed to stop. New Geneva was to be an example. They had bombarded the surface until nothing remained but ash and crater glass, then settled in for a siege that would starve out any survivors. "Signal strength from Earth?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Still nothing, Commander. The Zelkari jamming grid is perfect. No signals in, none out." Sarah nodded grimly. Earth didn't even know New Geneva was under attack. The colony was 3 weeks out from the nearest human outpost, and the Zelkari had made sure their blockade was invisible to long-range sensors. To the rest of humanity, New Geneva had simply gone quiet. But the Zelkari had made one crucial mistake. They assumed humans were like every other species they had conquered. They gave up when the odds became impossible. Private Martinez looked up from his console, excitement breaking through his usual calm. "Commander, I'm picking up movement in the debris field. Something big." Sarah moved to his station, studying the readings. The debris field was all that remained of the colony's orbital defenses, twisted metal and scattered components floating in a slowly expanding cloud. But there, hidden among the wreckage, something was moving with purpose. "Zelkari patrol?" Rodriguez suggested. "Negative," Martinez replied, his fingers dancing across the controls. "The energy signature is all wrong. It's human tech." The command center fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems. Sarah stared at the screen, hardly daring to hope. "Are you certain, Martinez?" "Yes, ma'am. Definitely human fusion drives. Multiple contacts, moving through the debris field toward the planet." Sarah felt her heart racing. Somehow, someone had made it through the blockade. But that should have been impossible. The Zelkari fleet numbered in the thousands, arranged in overlapping defensive spheres that could track a grain of sand traveling at combat speeds. "How many ships?" she asked. Martinez frowned, adjusting his sensors. "I'm reading 17 distinct engine signatures, but the size estimates are strange. They're small. Fighter-sized, maybe Corvette class at most." Sarah's hope dimmed. 17 small ships against thousands of Zelkari capital vessels? It would be suicide. Brave, but pointless. Then, her communications officer, Corporal Kim, gasped. "Commander, I'm picking up a transmission. It's encoded with yesterday's Earth Defense Force authentication codes." "Impossible. Those codes change every 6 hours." "I know, ma'am, but that's what I'm reading. The signal is tight beam, coming from the debris field." Sarah grabbed the headset. "This is Commander Chun, New Geneva Colony Defense. Identify yourselves." Static filled the channel for long seconds. Then a voice came through, calm and professional with just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. "Commander Chun, this is Colonel James Walker, Earth Defense Force Special Operations. We're here to get you out." "Colonel, this is impossible. The blockade dash is about to have a very bad day," Walker interrupted smoothly. "We need you to mark your position with an infrared beacon. We'll handle the rest." Sarah looked around at her surviving people. They were watching her with desperate hope in their eyes. "Colonel, there are thousands of Zelkari ships up there. You have 17. Walker's laugh was cold and sharp. "Commander, you're thinking like someone who's been under siege for 3 months. Earth has been busy since the Zelkari started their expansion. We've learned a few new tricks. Through the viewport, Sarah could see the Zelkari fleet beginning to stir. Their sensors had finally detected something moving in the debris field. Massive ships were turning, weapons charging with deadly light. "Colonel, they've spotted you. You need to withdraw immediately." "Negative, Commander. We didn't come this far to turn around. Light that beacon and keep your heads down. This is about to get interesting." Sarah hesitated for only a moment, then nodded to Martinez. "Do it. Light the beacon." The infrared signal began broadcasting their position to the mysterious human ships hidden in the debris. Whatever was about to happen, there was no turning back now. Above them, the Zelkari fleet was moving into attack formation. Sarah had seen them do this before, during the initial assault on the colony. They moved like a perfectly coordinated machine, each ship knowing its exact role. The aliens were methodical, efficient, and utterly ruthless. But as Sarah watched through the bunker's periscope system, she noticed something odd. The 17 human ships weren't running. They weren't even trying to hide anymore. Instead, they were spreading out in what looked almost like an attack formation of their own. "This is insane," Rodriguez muttered, watching the tactical display. "They're outnumbered 300 to 1. Then, the first human ship opened fire. Sarah expected to see the familiar blue-white lance of human plasma weaponry. Instead, the ship unleashed something entirely new. A stream of what looked like liquid fire erupted from its forward section, moving impossibly fast. It struck a Zelkari heavy cruiser dead center, and the entire ship simply vanished in a sphere of brilliant light. "What the hell was that?" Kim breathed. Before anyone could answer, all 17 human ships opened fire simultaneously. The space above New Geneva turned into a light show of destruction. But these weren't the weapons Sarah recognized from Earth's Navy. These were something else entirely. One ship fired what appeared to be solid projectiles, but when they struck their targets, they bored through Zelkari armor like it was made of paper. Another unleashed swarms of tiny objects that moved like living things, swarming over enemy hulls and tearing them apart from the inside. The Zelkari fleet tried to respond, but their perfectly coordinated formation was working against them now. Ships collided as they tried to target the small, fast-moving human vessels. Their massive weapons, designed to destroy other capital ships, couldn't track targets, moving with impossible agility. "Commander," Martinez called out, his voice filled with awe, "I'm reading energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. Those aren't standard Earth Defense Force ships." Sarah was beginning to understand. "They're not EDF, are they? There's something new." As if to confirm her suspicion, Walker's voice came through the comm again. "Commander, you're about to see why the Zelkari Empire is about to become a lot smaller. Earth's been very busy building friends while they've been building enemies." One of the human ships dove directly into the heart of the Zelkari formation, weapons blazing. It should have been destroyed instantly by the concentrated firepower of hundreds of enemy vessels. Instead, it seemed to phase in and out of existence, their shots passing harmlessly through empty space where the ship had been microseconds before. "Adaptive cloaking," Rodriguez whispered. "But that's impossible. The power requirements alone dash." His words were cut off as another section of the Zelkari fleet simply ceased to exist. The human ships moved through space like hunters among sheep, each one demonstrating technology that shouldn't have been possible. Sarah realized she was watching something that would change the course of the war. These weren't just weapons, they were a statement. Earth hadn't been sitting idle while the Zelkari conquered world after world. They had been preparing for this moment. The battle raged for 30 minutes, but the outcome was never in doubt. The massive Zelkari fleet, which had seemed invincible just an hour ago, was being systematically dismantled by 17 ships that moved and fought like nothing Sarah had ever seen. As the last Zelkari vessel exploded in a ball of superheated gas, Walker's voice came through the comm one final time. "Commander Chun, this is Colonel Walker. New Geneva is secure. Prepare your people for extraction. And welcome to the new reality of human military capability." Sarah stared out at the debris field that had once been an invasion fleet, her mind struggling to process what she had just witnessed. The siege was over, but she had the distinct feeling that something much larger was just beginning. "Rodriguez," she said quietly, "I don't think we're the same species that left Earth 3 months ago." Outside, 17 impossible ships moved through space like angels of destruction, and Sarah Chun realized that humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that could never be ignored or forgotten. The extraction ship that descended to New Geneva's surface looked nothing like any human vessel Sarah had ever seen. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, adapting its shape as it moved through the atmosphere. When it touched down in the colony's main plaza, Sarah could see her reflection distorted in its surface like looking into a funhouse mirror. Colonel Walker emerged for what she assumed was an airlock, though she hadn't seen any obvious seams or openings. He was tall and lean, with the easy confidence of a man who had just accomplished the impossible. But what struck Sarah most were his eyes. They held a depth of knowledge that seemed almost alien itself. "Commander Chun," Walker said, extending his hand. "It's good to meet you in person. I'm sorry we couldn't get here sooner." Sarah shook his hand, studying his uniform. It looked like standard Earth Defense Force issue, but there were subtle differences. The fabric seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and the rank insignia appeared to be made of some material she didn't recognize. "Colonel, I have to ask, what exactly did we just witness up there? Those weapons, that technology, none of it matches anything in Earth's arsenal." Walker smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're right, Commander. 3 months ago, it didn't exist. A lot has changed since the Zelkari began their expansion campaign." As Sarah's survivors filed aboard the strange ship, she noticed more oddities. The interior walls seemed to glow with their own light, and the air felt different, cleaner somehow, charged with an energy she couldn't identify. Her people looked around in wonder and confusion. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez approached Walker cautiously. "With respect, where exactly are you taking us? And what happened to Earth's regular fleet?" Walker gestured for them to take seats that seemed to form themselves from the ship's floor. "The regular fleet is exactly where it's supposed to be, Lieutenant. We represent something supplementary." The ship lifted off with no sensation of movement. Through the transparent walls, Sarah was certain they had been opaque metal moments before. She could see New Geneva's scarred surface falling away below them. "Colonel," Sarah pressed, "my people deserve to know what's happening. We've been through hell for 3 months. We need answers." Walker was quiet for a long moment, seeming to wrestle with some internal decision. Finally, he activated a holographic display that materialized in the air between them. "What I'm about to show you is classified at the highest levels," he began. "But given what you've witnessed, you have a right to know." The display showed a star map of the local galactic arm. Red dots marked Zelkari-controlled systems, spreading like a cancer across human space. But there were other markers too, blue dots scattered throughout the contested regions. 6 months ago, Earth made contact with a coalition of species that the Zelkari had previously conquered or displaced. Turns out, humanity isn't the first race to object to Zelkari expansion methods. Sarah leaned forward. "You mean there are others fighting them?" "Not fighting exactly," Walker corrected. "The Zelkari are too powerful for conventional resistance. But there are other approaches to warfare." He touched the display, zooming in on a cluster of systems near the galactic rim. "Meet the Kithara. They were one of the first species the Zelkari encountered 500 years ago. The Zelkari assumed they had wiped them out completely." The display showed images of beings that looked like living crystal formations, beautiful and utterly alien. They survived by learning to exist in parallel dimensions, phasing in and out of our reality at will. "The technology you saw our ships using? It's based on Kithara dimensional manipulation." Rodriguez shook his head in amazement. "The way your ships disappeared and reappeared during the battle." "Exactly. But that's just one of our new allies." Walker continued his presentation. The display shifted to show squid-like creatures with massive brains. The Vorthak were conquered 300 years ago. They survived by uploading their consciousness into quantum computer networks. They've been hiding in subspace communication channels ever since. The weapons that seem to think for themselves, Sarah realized. Those were Vorthak-designed AI systems. Smart Woman, the swarming munitions, the adaptive targeting systems, even the ship's ability to predict Zelkari movement patterns, all Vorthak technology. Walker showed them species after species, beings of pure energy who had learned to inhabit electronic systems, creatures that could manipulate matter at the molecular level, races that existed as collective consciousness spanning entire star systems. Each species the Zelkari thought they had destroyed found a way to survive, Walker explained. They've been waiting, learning, preparing. All they needed was a catalyst. Us, Sarah breathed. Humanity, Walker confirmed. We're apparently unique in one crucial way. Every other species they've encountered thinks in terms of surrender or resistance. Humans think in terms of adaptation and escalation. The ship had cleared New Geneva's atmosphere now, and Sarah could see the debris field where the Zelkari fleet had died. Already, strange vessels were moving through the wreckage, harvesting technology and materials. The other species had the knowledge to develop incredible technologies, Walker continued, but they were too traumatized by their defeats to think aggressively. They needed partners who could take their gifts and turn them into weapons of war. Sarah was beginning to understand the scope of what had happened. How many species are in this coalition? 47 confirmed members as of yesterday, Walker replied, with more joining every day. Word is spreading that the Zelkari are no longer invincible. Private Martinez, who had been quietly listening, suddenly spoke up. Sir, what about the Zelkari response? They're not going to just ignore the destruction of an entire fleet. Walker's expression darkened. You're absolutely right, Private. Intelligence suggests they're already mobilizing a response. The fleet you saw destroyed was just a patrol group. The real Zelkari war machine is orders of magnitude larger. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. How much larger? Conservative estimates put their total military strength at over 2 million ships, backed by the industrial capacity of 300 conquered worlds. Walker's words hung in the air like a death sentence. But you have a plan, Rodriguez said. It wasn't a question. We do, but it's going to require something unprecedented in galactic history. Walker manipulated the display again, showing a vast region of space at the galaxy's edge. Total war. Not just military engagement, but a complete restructuring of how warfare is conducted in space. The display zoomed in on a massive construction project, something that dwarfed even the largest space station Sarah had ever seen. It appeared to be part shipyard, part research facility, and part fortress. This is Haven Station, Walker explained. Built in 6 months using the combined technologies of all coalition species. It's part of a network of 12 similar installations hidden throughout the galaxy. What do they do? Sarah asked, though she suspected she wouldn't like the answer. They're manufacturing facilities for a new type of warship, Walker said grimly. Ships that use the best technology from every coalition species. Each one capable of engaging an entire Zelkari fleet alone. Sarah stared at the massive structure on the display. How many are you building? Our current production target is 10,000 ships within the next 6 months. The number was staggering. Sarah tried to imagine 10,000 vessels like the ones that had just destroyed the Zelkari blockade. It would represent a level of military power that could reshape the galaxy. But there's a problem, Walker continued. Building the ships is the easy part. We need crews that can handle technologies from dozens of different species. We need commanders who can think in 4 dimensions simultaneously. We need warriors who can adapt to enemy tactics that we've never seen before. He looked directly at Sarah and her surviving officers. We need people who have been tested under impossible conditions and found a way to survive. Sarah understood immediately. You want us to join this fleet? Not just you, Commander. We're recruiting survivors from every world the Zelkari have attacked. People who have seen their homes destroyed and live to tell about it. People who understand what's at stake. Lieutenant Rodriguez leaned back in his chair, processing the magnitude of what they were being asked to do. Sir, with respect, we're colonial defense officers. We're not trained for the kind of warfare you're describing. Walker's smile was sharp as a blade. Lieutenant, 3 months ago, I was a logistics coordinator for the Mars orbital shipyards. War has a way of revealing capabilities we didn't know we had. The ship was approaching one of the mysterious human vessels now, and Sarah could see it up close for the first time. It was beautiful in an alien way, its hull covered with patterns that seemed to shift and change as she watched. This is your choice, all of you, Walker said seriously. We can take you to any safe human world. You've earned a right to peace after what you've endured. But if you choose to join us, you'll be part of something that will determine the fate of every free species in the galaxy. Sarah looked around at her people, tired, traumatized, but still alive. They had survived the impossible once. Maybe they could do it again. Colonel, she said finally, when do we start training? 6 months later, Commander Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the UCS Defiance, watching the largest military fleet in galactic history prepare for battle. Through the bridge's crystalline viewports, she could see thousands of ships stretching to the horizon, each one a perfect fusion of technologies from dozens of species. Her own ship was a marvel that still took her breath away. The Defiance incorporated Kithera-dimensional phasing, Vort-Hack artificial intelligence, Nexary matter manipulation, and human tactical philosophy into something entirely new. The bridge itself seemed alive, responding to her thoughts as much as her voice commands. Status report, she called out to her crew, a mix of humans and aliens working in perfect harmony. Lieutenant Rodriguez, now wearing the quantum-enhanced uniform of a Coalition tactical officer, checked his displays. All ships report ready, Commander. The Zelkari main fleet has taken the bait. Sarah nodded grimly. For 3 months, Coalition forces had been conducting hit-and-run attacks throughout Zelkari space, always retreating before the enemy could bring their overwhelming numbers to bear. It had been a calculated strategy to draw the entire Zelkari military machine to this system, the apparent location of humanity's home fleet. Of course, the real human fleet was safely hidden in another galaxy entirely. What the Zelkari would find here was something else entirely. Ma'am, reported Ensign Kim, her consciousness now seamlessly interfaced with the ship's Vort-Hack AI systems. Long-range sensors confirm Zelkari numbers. 2.3 million vessels, including their entire command structure. Sarah felt her heart rate steady. This was it, the decisive moment that would determine whether free species could exist in the galaxy or whether the Zelkari Empire would reign supreme for another 1,000 years. Signal from Admiral Walker, Rodriguez announced. The holographic display materialized, showing Colonel Walker, now Admiral Walker, aboard the Coalition flagship. Behind him, Sarah could see beings from a dozen different species working at stations designed for their unique physiologies. All commanders, Walker said solemnly, this is the moment we've been preparing for. In approximately 30 minutes, the Zelkari fleet will drop out of hyperspace, expecting to find a standard human defensive formation. Instead, they're going to discover that the rules of warfare have fundamentally changed. Sarah activated her ship's communication systems, addressing her crew. All hands, this is the commander. I know many of you are thinking about the homes we've lost, the people we couldn't save. Today, we make sure no one else has to endure what we've endured. Around her bridge, alien and human crew members worked with the synchronized precision of a symphony orchestra. The Vort-Hack AI whispered tactical suggestions directly in her mind, while Kithera phase shift generators hummed with barely contained dimensional energy. Zelkari fleet dropping out of hyperspace, Kim announced. Estimated arrival in 60 seconds. Sarah took a deep breath, tasting air that had been purified by Nexary atmospheric processors. All ships, activate stealth systems. Let's show them what ghosts can do. The Coalition fleet vanished from normal space, phasing partially into the dimensional realm where the Kithera had hidden for centuries. To Zelkari sensors, The system would appear completely empty except for a few decoy signals designed to look like fleeing civilian vessels. Then, space exploded with light as over 2 million Zelkari warships materialized in perfect formation. Sarah had to admit their discipline was impressive. Rank upon rank of identical vessels arranged in geometric patterns that spoke of absolute military precision. Target acquisition complete, reported Rodriguez. All ships locked onto assigned targets. Sarah watched as the Zelkari fleet began its standard deployment pattern, spreading out to engulf the entire system. They moved with the confidence of conquerors who had never faced a serious challenge. "This is Admiral Walker to all coalition forces," came the voice over the comm. "Today we demonstrate that evolution beats stagnation every time. All units, execute Order Omega." Sarah triggered her command console. "All stations, battle stations. Weapons free. Show them what humanity learned from our new friends." The Defiance phased back into normal space directly in the heart of the Zelkari formation, along with 9,000 other coalition ships. The enemy's perfect formation suddenly became a death trap as vessels appeared from nowhere, weapons already firing. But these weren't the weapons that had destroyed the blockade at New Geneva. 6 months of intensive development had produced something far more devastating. Sarah's ship unleashed a stream of Nexari smart matter that reshaped itself mid-flight, boring through Zelkari armor and reconstructing itself as explosive charges inside enemy hulls. Around her, other coalition vessels fired weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, striking targets that thought they were safely behind cover. The battle was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Coalition ships moved through space like living things, their Kithara phase drives allowing them to appear anywhere in the enemy formation instantly. Vortak AI systems coordinated attacks across thousands of ships with perfect timing, creating tactical opportunities that no biological mind could have conceived. "Zelkari command ship identified," Kim called out. 300 kilometers to starboard. Moving to retreat position. Sarah smiled coldly. The Zelkari commanders were trying to withdraw their leadership to safety, assuming their massive numerical advantage would eventually overcome the coalition forces. They still thought like conquerors who had never faced true resistance. "Signal all Phantom Squadron ships," Sarah ordered. "Primary target confirmed. Execute Shadow Strike." 50 coalition vessels, including the Defiance, phased out of normal space entirely, traveling through the dimensional realm where the Kithara had perfected the art of invisible warfare. They reappeared around the massive Zelkari command ship, like materializing nightmares. Sarah's weapons officer, a Vortak consciousness inhabiting a crystalline avatar, spoke in harmonics that the ship's systems translated perfectly. "All weapon systems synchronized. Recommend dimensional cascade strike." "Execute," Sarah commanded. The coalition ships fired simultaneously, their weapons existing in 17 different dimensional phases at once. The Zelkari command ship, 3 times larger than any coalition vessel, simply ceased to exist as its matter was scattered across multiple reality layers. But the real victory wasn't the destruction of a single ship. It was the message being broadcast on all frequencies by the ship's AI systems, a message containing the complete technical specifications for every weapon and defensive system the coalition had developed. "My God," Rodriguez breathed. "You're giving them our technology?" Sarah nodded. "Every species they've conquered, every world they've enslaved. Now they all know exactly how we did this." Across the galaxy, on worlds where conquered species lived under Zelkari rule, the message was being received and decoded. The technical plans that had taken 47 species working together to develop were now freely available to anyone with the will to use them. The battle continued to rage around them, but Sarah knew the outcome was already decided. The Zelkari had committed their entire military force to this engagement, believing they were facing a desperate last stand by humanity. Instead, they had walked into a demonstration that would inspire resistance movements throughout their empire. "Coalition casualties?" she asked. Minimal, Rodriguez replied with amazement. Less than 50 ships lost. Zelkari losses are approaching 80%. Sarah watched through the viewports as the once mighty Zelkari fleet was systematically destroyed by forces they couldn't predict, track, or counter. But the real damage wasn't being done here in this system. Admiral Walker, to all commanders, came the voice over the comm. Long-range sensors are confirming uprisings on Zelkari-controlled worlds throughout the galaxy. It appears our technical broadcast has been well received. Sarah smiled as reports flooded in from across Zelkari space. On world after world, conquered species were using coalition technology to break free from their oppressors. The weapons and ship designs that had taken the coalition 6 months to develop were being mass-produced by civilizations that had been waiting centuries for hope. The remaining Zelkari ships tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to run. Coalition forces had positioned themselves at every hyperspace exit point, and their dimensional phase technology made conventional escape impossible. "Commander," Kim reported, "the Zelkari are broadcasting on all frequencies. It appears to be a surrender offer." Sarah looked around her bridge at the faces of humans and aliens working together. 6 months ago, she had been hiding underground while an enemy fleet bombarded her world. Now, she was part of something that had changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. "Put them through," she said. The holographic display showed a Zelkari commander, his reptilian features twisted with defeat and confusion. "Human vessels, we request terms for surrender. Your technology is beyond our understanding." Sarah stood slowly, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. "Zelkari commander, this is Commander Sarah Chun of the Coalition of Free Species. We don't want your surrender. We want your empire to understand something fundamental." She gestured toward the viewport where the remains of the once mighty fleet drifted in space. "Conquest is not evolution. Oppression is not strength. The galaxy belongs to all species that choose to live in freedom." The Zelkari commander's eyes widened as the implications sank in. "The Coalition? You speak of other species?" 47 at last count," Sarah replied. "All the races you thought you had destroyed. They've been waiting, learning, preparing. Today, they reclaim their freedom." As if to punctuate her words, reports continued streaming in from across the galaxy. World after world declaring independence, armed with technology that made resistance not just possible, but inevitable. "This is impossible," the Zelkari commander whispered. "Our empire has stood for 1,000 years." Sarah's expression was both sad and determined. Empires built on oppression always fall eventually. They just need the right push. Around them, the last of the Zelkari fleet was being systematically disabled rather than destroyed. Coalition forces had learned mercy from humanity, but justice from the species that had suffered under Zelkari rule. "Commander Chun," Admiral Walker's voice came over the comm. "Preliminary reports indicate successful liberation of over 300 worlds in the past 6 hours. It appears our little demonstration has had the desired effect." Sarah nodded, looking out at the stars that no longer belonged to any single empire. "Admiral, permission to take the Defiance on patrol duty. Something tells me there are a lot of newly free worlds that might need assistance." "Permission granted, Commander. Welcome to the new galaxy." As the Defiance turned toward the stars, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 6 months ago, she had been trapped underground, watching alien ships destroy everything she cared about. Today, she was part of something that had given hope to countless species across the galaxy. The Zelkari Empire still existed, but it was no longer an unstoppable force. More importantly, every species in the galaxy now knew that resistance was possible, that cooperation could overcome conquest, and that even the mightiest oppressors could fall when faced with the combined will of free beings. The age of empire was ending. The age of coalition had begun.